I am not going to contest that animal testing, when it's painful and causes suffering, is something that we need to deal with in our society and not continue to allow it to happen as rampantly as it does today. However, my opponent's arguments are not in favor of banning animal testing. Rather, they're in favor of regulating animal testing. Note that there is no time in his speech when he gives you a solid reason for why we need to ban this instead of regulating it. And in fact, regulating it leaves our world, leaves the society open to possible benefits, not only to humans, but to animals that can be accrued from animal testing. So his argument rests on four main parts that I'm going to deal with before I move into positive matter. The first one is that it's immoral. That because animals suffer, it's immoral for humans to cause them suffering and we should stop it. He also says, though, that if they don't suffer, it's still a problem, but he doesn't give you real reasons why this is still a horrible problem other than just they have limited freedom. I'm going to talk about this more in my positive matter, that limited freedom is a price that is acceptable when we consider the fact that animals can benefit from a lot of this testing as well. Secondly, he talks about that it's ineffective. But this is an argument for more strict regulations. These specific drug examples that he gives you are not reasons to vote to ban this, but rather to vote that there should be more testing on humans before things are released to the public, or more testing in general before things are released to the public. Once again, this is a regulation, not a banning. Thirdly, he says there's no protection from cruelty. Once again, purely this can be solved by regulation. This can be solved by redefining what animals are under the Animal Protection Act. And fourthly, he says that other countries do this, so we should follow suit. We think that just because the EU does something does not mean that we should do something, and that we want our companies to be testing on more accurate and have more open policies so that they can have more options open to them before we just blindly follow what the EU does, which is not a strict ban, but rather more strict definitions and regulations, as we see in the UK and the EU, and, well, Europe. Okay, so my own personal matter, though. So, he talks about, my own personal matter. We think there are two reasons why banning this is a really bad idea. First of all, we want to talk about the alternatives to banning all animal testing. And then secondly, I'm going to talk about what is most ethical, and that is, in fact, to continue animal testing in some senses. But first of all, the alternatives to banning animal testing, it doesn't just go away. We see that it's not so simple as once animal testing goes away, that it all goes away. In fact, when testing stops being done on animals, it turns to humans. But this also isn't just as simple as people volunteering to be tested on. Rather, the people who end up being test subjects are those who are poor and those who are forced into situations where they will do anything for money. They will take any risk, and they will disregard any cost. Now, what this essentially does is this makes the poor into test subjects for the betterment of the rich. I think there is a huge ethical problem when we say that in our own society, our own race, which we have a moral obligation to before any other race, that it's okay to say that prisoners and poor people and the lower classes of society should be the ones that are serving the upper class of society merely because they need a couple of dollars, and it's not even going to be a lot of money, it'll be a couple of dollars. So ultimately, despite whatever our ethical obligations are to beings outside of our species, we need to first make sure that we treat the beings in our own species ethically first. The ethical treatment of humans in this scenario outweighs. Secondly, though, it's ethical to test for the animal's sake as well, because we see that the government does also regulate testing on things such as lawn products, as chemicals used in daily life, that when they test them on animals, they make sure that mass slaughter of animals in neighborhoods from fertilizers or weed killers will not be happening. So the confined life of these animals that would be tested in this scenario is worth the risk And in fact, their lives, and even pain to them, their deaths, are justifiable when we consider that that the slaughter of animals in the wide scale would not be happening. And that is why we think we need to regulate animal testing, but certainly not ban it, and certainly not keep it away from an option for the betterment of humans and animals.